So let me explain to you now a little bit about the recruitment industry as a whole and where we fit into it. First of all, let's look at the size of the industry. In the UK, we produce roughly total revenues across the entire country of around about 28 to 29 billion pounds, and there are around about 24,000 recruitment firms in the whole of the country. Put this into context with the US, the whole of the United States creates around about $150 billion in total revenues, which in constant currency equates to around about 94 billion pounds. I'll explain to you the term constant currency later on in the training. However, in the whole of the US, there is only around about 20,000 firms, so comparatively smaller given the geographic scale compared to the UK. If we break that down onto a state level, in New York State, there's roughly 7.5 billion in total revenues from recruitment from around about 1,420 offices of recruitment firms. Texas, our next location, a little bit larger than New York State, with around about $11.9 billion in total revenues, coming from around 3,100 offices of recruitment companies. The largest state in the US from a recruitment perspective being California, where there's just shy of $16 billion in revenues from around 3,680 different offices of recruitment companies. And why is all of this relevant? So, important to understand, the UK is an incredibly saturated recruitment market. There are rumoured to be more companies inside Greater London delivering recruitment services than there are in the entire whole of the rest of Europe. So we have grown up as a company of 20 from initiation through to the scale that we are now in the most saturated recruitment market, arguably in the world. There aren't many things that we do particularly well in the UK. Recruitment happens to be one of them. We are training people in a very, very difficult market, and we are thriving and doing brilliantly as a business. We are then exporting that methodology to the US and enabling ourselves to thrive in even comparatively competitive markets. We're continuing to do this, and we will grow through Texas and California and also further into less saturated markets in Europe using those skills that we honed in London. So now let's look at that huge recruitment market and start to break it down a little bit so you can understand where we fit in. First of all, let's examine the difference between a recruitment agent and a recruitment consultant. A recruitment agent is an order taker. They are expected by the client to take exactly the order that they are giving them regarding a job spec and produce a candidate that matches up with that perfectly. This tends to work at lower level clerical roles or labour markets where they'll be looking for a building skill set or a specific clerical skill set. There are other lower level administrative areas this also works on, but essentially the client is expecting the exact requirements to be delivered or they're not prepared to pay a fee. A consultant acts more as an advisor. So the client is expecting a consultant to give them advice on whether the job spec they've created is viable, whether that skill set can be found in the price range they're looking for, or how they would need to compromise. A consultant is expected to advise the client on whether or not their job spec is viable, whether or not the price range is correct, and or what compromises they need to make. The consultant will be also expected to advise the candidate on, for their individual skill set, what companies would be the best next step for them, what salary expectations they could have, and how in demand their particular skill set is. The consultant earns a living by having each party compromise and still be happy with the outcome. What a consultant will do with a client is explain to them that they're never going to get an exact match of exactly what they're looking for. Typically, a client has someone in mind for the job. That's normally the person that's just left the job or the person they'd like to offer the job to who won't accept it. They're never going to get that candidate. So they're going to have to compromise, and they're going to have to pay probably more than they expected and a fee for that compromise. There is a skill involved for the consultant, therefore, to make the client happy with the best compromise and be comfortable to pay the fee. Same goes for the candidate. The candidate has an ideal job that they want. That job probably doesn't exist, and they're going to need to make a compromise. The compromise might be better for them in their career, but it might not be the exact company, the exact skill set they were looking for, or the exact amount of money. again, the consultant has to make the candidate happy with the compromise and keen to take the job offer in order to get the set up. The skill of a consultant is to have each party compromise and be happy with the outcome. An agent, however, the skill is to deliver on time and on budget the exact skill set that the client was looking for. So just to finally explain where we fit in, it helps if you understand corporate structure to finally grasp where we fit in. So an executive search firm, a pure genuine executive search firm, not a contingent firm that's pretending to be a search firm, tends to operate within the C-suite of most companies. Now, if you think about the hierarchical structure of most businesses, it's a pyramid shape. At the top of the pyramid, you would have the C-suite, the chief executive officer, the chief financial officer, the chief technology officer, and so on. Genuine search firms are working on a retained basis for companies that need to hire talent at that level or the direct reports into the C-suite level. Where we come in is the next level down. We're a specialist contingent consultancy that occasionally does search, and we're looking at the positions both on a contract and a permanent basis where there is high value but also greater volume. We work all the way down to the mid to senior level, so we're starting at around about the AVP or VP level in most corporate structures. I'll explain corporate structures in detail later on, where there is a requirement for a highly skilled individual and there is a volume of recruitment business. Below us would be where the agencies come in, and they're looking at junior level, either graduate positions or clerical positions in corporate environments, where the clients expect exactly what they're looking for to be delivered. Our contingent piece of business has a slightly higher value and service delivery expected from it than the junior agency level business, but the form of recruitment is slightly less complex than executive search. A typical executive search consultant would have at least an MBA or an MSc, speak multiple languages, and probably have 20 years in the industry with which they're recruiting. So they'll have a black book of personal contacts that could lead them to the individuals that will get the C-suite jobs. As I've already explained with this training, we're expecting you to arrive with us knowing nothing of any relevance in the industry and have no recruitment skills. So clearly, it would be foolhardy for us to compete with those executive search businesses. However, we can quickly train you in the techniques that enable you to be successful in the mid to senior contingent market, particularly if we're focused on a specialist vertical and a specialist industry, where everyone you talk to can give you valuable information to help you find the next candidate for the role that you're working on. So how do recruitment companies make money? There are four principal ways that a recruitment company can generate revenue streams. First of all, there is permanent recruitment. This is a form of recruitment where we're placing an individual with a client for a job that is expected to be on a permanent basis. In this method of recruitment, we charge one fee based on the starting salary or in some cases compensation package of the individual starting the job. We negotiate that salary for the candidate with the employer, and then we charge a percentage of that salary or compensation package when they start. For instance, a typical range of margin that we would charge on a permanent placement would be between 20 and 30%. So if the candidate was earning £100,000 or $100,000, we'd be charging a fee of somewhere in the range of £20,000 to £30,000 or $20,000 to £30,000. The next type of revenue stream in recruitment would be temporary recruitment. This is where we would place a candidate on site with a client for a short-term assignment. In this type of recruitment, we payroll the candidate and place them on site with a client to do the job for a period of time. In 20, we don't perform this type of recruitment for a variety of reasons, but typically the level at which this recruitment starts is more junior, the salaries and the day rates are lower, and the margin is therefore smaller. So this isn't our speciality. This would form in the category more of what an agent supplies. The next type of recruitment would be contract or interim. 20 do provide this service. This is where we're placing candidates on a client site on a day rate or an hourly rate for a specific project. It could be 3, 6 months, 12 months, up to 18 months plus, and we're charging the client a day rate for the candidate with a margin on top. In these circumstances, the candidate is a limited company contractor. They either have their own company and they send us their timesheets at the end of the work and a bill for the work they've done. We pay that individual as a company, and then we invoice the client, charging a margin. I'll talk to you more in greater detail about margins and markups later on. The final type of recruitment is executive search, where we would work exclusively with the client, charge a fee up front to deliver a portfolio of research, and then a further fee on the shortlist of the candidate, the final third of the fee being on delivery of the successful candidate. 20 does engage in this form of recruitment, but less so than both the permanent and the contract recruitment, which are the main sources of our revenue. I must just explain the difference between contingent and executive search. So contingent recruitment is where our fee is dependent on us successfully placing the candidate. This is present in both contract and permanent recruitment. So we will charge the client if we are the successful consultancy placing the candidate. However, it's almost certainly going to involve us competing with other recruitment consultancies for the same piece of work. So every role that we work, there will be multiple recruitment consultancies working the same role. Somewhere between 3 to 10 consultancies, depending on the size of the company and the demand for the skill sets. On a retained search basis or executive search, the role is exclusively with the recruitment company. We would charge more money, but we would put more time and effort into filling that role because we have an exclusive relationship where the success for the company and for ourselves are dependent on us fulfilling that role. We would tend to work that role exclusively through the time period, whereas on a contingent basis, we're working multiple roles at any